Wow, Seema, that's amazing.
I know, I didn't make it. I'm a birthday girl, so I
Happy
share it with all
Ah,
of
happy
you.
birthday.
Happy
Blessed,
birthday.
you know, it was
Hey.
yesterday was my Hebrew, tomorrow is my English. May you all be blessed with long years, excellent health, simcha and nachat, and all of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's physical and spiritual blessings.
Wow, Seema,
Amen.
thank you.
Thank
That
you.
is such a nice beginning for our morning. And you as well. And enjoy your beautiful fruit platter.
Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry I can't share it.
Okay. So good morning, everybody. I think we'll start. Today, Bezrat Hashem, we're going to be studying one of the shorter Mizmorei Tehillim. It's Mizmor Kuf Lamed Gimel. Let me share with you this. I sent the source sheet. Okay, but I don't know if anybody, everyone can do both. I'm going to
Lamed Gimel is
Kuf is 100,
100.
Lamed is
33.
and Gimel is yes, so 133.
33. Okay. Toda.
Okay, so here, can everybody see the source sheet? Yes. Okay, so wait, let me get rid of this so that it won't. So you have more source sheet. Let me make it a little bit bigger. How do I do that? Now that I got rid of my thing, like this. Okay. So I'm gonna have you all on my screen, so I'm not necessarily going to be able to remember to move the sources. If the sources need to be realigned, please let me know, and I'll move them, okay? I'd rather see all of you. Okay, so a few months ago when I was preparing my general outline for the shiur about Sforno, what I did was I jotted down a few mizmorim that I thought would be interesting to share with you. And when I was going to prepare the shiur, I said, okay, let's just look at my list. And okay, let's go Kuf Lamed Gimel. I said, oh wow, that's so cute. It's a 3 pasuk mizmor. It's so nice. It's so beautiful. And not only that, since it's only 3 psukim, we'll get a chance to learn the mizmor and a parush and Sforno, everything in one lesson. I was very, very excited. I started looking around to see like who writes about this mizmor. The only thing I see that people write is that this is one of the most enigmatic mizmorim in Tehillim. And eventually I find a shiur by Rav Stavsky. It's 3 lessons long. So I don't know if we're going to manage to get the whole shiur in one sitting, but that's okay. We've done it before. We sometimes take it into 2. Let's start off by reading the mizmor. Okay. Try and get a general understanding a little bit about its structure. And from there, we'll move on into the content and I'll explain, and we'll see also the complexity of the mizmor. Okay, so I'm going to read it. You've got the English there as well. Now, I'm just reminding you the translations are a decision on how to interpret something. Okay, בסדר. שיר המעלות לדוד. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. כשמן הטוב על הראש, יורד על הזקן, זקן אהרון שיורד על פי מידותיו. כטל חרמון שיורד על הררי ציון, כי שם ציווה השם את הברכה, חיים עד העולם. So, very nice, a very, very nice mizmor. Okay, this mizmor belongs to a subgroup in the Mizmorei Tehillim. Which group does it belong to?
Malot.
Yes, it belongs to Shirei HaMa'alot.
15 of them that the Levim sang on the way up to the Mizbeach.
Yes,
No?
and there are 15 mizmorim in this group. And if you're looking for them in the Sefer Tehillim, they're right after Kuf Yutet. Right? If you find your longest mizmor in Tehillim, the longest mizmor, Kuf Yutet, is flanked. Before it is Hallel, and after it is Shirei HaMa'alot. Okay, so if you're ever looking for something, So you know your way around a little bit because everybody remembers that Kuf Yutet is the longest one. So Shirei Malot are right after that. Okay, so as a group, these Mizmorim have things in common. I think that we studied one of the Mizmorim Shirei Malot a few months ago. But different commentators have different ideas of what it is that, what thematic idea
Me.
pulls them all together. Okay, and we'll get back to that in a moment. But if we look at Shirei Malot at the moment on a structural level,
Yeah.
what many of Shirei Malot have in common is something that we call Shir Shur.
I'm not muted.
Shir Shur, like a sharsheret, a chain, right? Link, right? Something link into link. Okay. How do you create a chain with words? By repeating words. You have a word in one pasuk, and then the word appears in the next pasuk, and then there's another word in another pasuk, and then like sort of bind the pasuk, the pasukim together in the mizmor. So if we take a look at our mizmor, okay, who can see any shirshurim here? It's a word that shows up and then it's going to repeat itself again.
Zakan.
Right, we've got zakan.
Zakan.
Okay, so we've got, let me see if I can mark it. Yes, that works. So we have zakan and then zkan Harun, right? We've got one chain link here. What other links do we have?
Yered
Yored, right. Where do you have Yored?
in Bet.
In Bet. Shem Natov Lorosh Yored ala zakan. 1 minute. Let's give it a different color. Okay. And then again in Pasuk Bet and
Annie Gimel.
in Gimel. Thank you. Very good. One more. It's in the first pasuk, in the first and second psukim.
You have ma twice. Is that
Oh.
anything?
Ma is also good. Ma is fantastic. Matov.
Ma na'im.
Yes, yes, yes. Okay, 1 second. I can only mark one thing at a time. We've got matov and we've got ma and ma. Okay. And then I heard somewhere in the background, but I didn't see who said it. We have the word tov.
Tov, I said it.
Thank you. Okay, so here we have tov. So that's the first one. Where's the next tov?
Pasuk
Where's it?
bet. In
Bet.
pasuk bet. Shem and Atov.
Shem and a tov.
Mention.
Tov. And we've got one more word that links us from place to place. Okay, we've got the word al. Also a word. Let's see if I can. Okay, yored al hazakan. Yored al pi midotav. And yored al hareret Zion. Okay, so if you look, you can see that our mizmor has 3 psukim, but it's very bound together, right? They've got all these words like a link here and another link and another link and another link, right? Everything pulls the mizmor together. Okay, if you look at our mizmor, not only does it have all these links, but one of the things that makes it such a nice mizmor is that it's full of positive words. What positive words do you see here?
We have tov. The word
Na'im.
tov is positive.
Na'im,
Wait.
Yachad,
Okay, wait 1 second. Judith, you wrote malot. What do you mean? I just missed it. That was from before. Okay, we said that. Okay, so right, we have the word tov is a positive word. Na'im is a positive word. Shevet and achim and gam yachad, all that together is very nice. Shemen, the oil. I know that this is modern times where you don't think of oil as good, but oil is seen as
And
a sign
bracha.
of
There's
blessing.
bracha and chayim. Bracha
Yes,
and chayim.
yes, yes. So we've got shemen, and we've got bracha, and we've got chaim, and we've got ad
Tal.
haolam, right?
Tal.
And tal, okay, tal is a sign of blessing. So our mizmor is full of nice things and blessings. And if you look at the theme, the word that keeps repeating itself, right? We've got our 3-time link is what word?
Shirad,
Yored, right? This
Red.
feeling of this coming down of all these blessings, right? Everything like this motion from the head to the beard, all the way down, from the Hermon, all the way down to Yerushalayim, right? This sending of blessings. I don't know if that is a word that is correct to use. Okay. So even though we don't know yet what the Mizmor is about, it's still, we recognize that this is a very nice mizmor. It's a mizmor that gives us a very nice feeling. It's a very positive feeling type of mizmor. But now we discover that we have a problem. We've got a few problems. I think I might have mentioned before that we have we sometimes classify mizmorim into different types of classification. Like what types of mizmorim are we familiar with? I'll give you an example. We've got mizmorim that are mizmorim of tefillah, right? That there's a prayer in the mizmor, right? What other types of mizmorim do we have?
Songs?
We've got songs, right? Or let's more specifically, the mizmorim just before Kuf Yutet, that we
We
say
have
every
Shir
Rosh Chodesh.
Malot. You have Shir
Praise,
Malot.
no?
That's not,
Praise.
that's a group, that's not a type. I'm looking at the content, okay?
Sheba.
Praise, right? We've got
Praise.
Shebach, but praise. We've got Tefillah, we've got Todah, gratitude. What else do we have?
Um,
Lynn,
like
if you're with me, I can't hear you.
discipline,
Instruction.
What did you say, Lynn?
Instruction?
What do you mean instruction?
Telling Bnei Israel, telling us how to act, how to pray, how to whatever.
Okay, yes, giving us like a type of direction, spiritual direction. There aren't so much halakha, there's no halakha, but there's more on the spiritual side. Yes, what
Right.
else do we have? Barbara, are you raising your hand or you? No, okay. I heard somebody else before in the background. It's hard when I have to try and catch all the squares and I can't see all the squares at once. So I apologize if you think I'm ignoring you.
okay.
It's just that I can't see everybody at once.
It's okay, but it was me, but I didn't see who said before, but she said the same thing.
Okay.
Like,
Beseder.
Lemos-
We've got a few other types of mizmorim. We've got historical mizmor, a mizmor that recounts Jewish history. We've got philosophical mizmorim, right, where the Meshorer says, how could it be that the bad guys have it good and the good guys have it bad? We've had a few of those philosophical mizmorim in class, right? So there's a lot of types of mizmorim that we're familiar with. But if you look at our mizmor, it doesn't fit into any of those categories. There's no prayer. There's no gratitude. It's not praise. It's not philosophical. It's not historical. It's not moral. What is this? Like, who is saying it to who about what? Right?
It seems like an observation.
It seems like some type of observation, but that doesn't fit into the rest of our mizmorim. What type of mizmor is just an observation? Or maybe there is, and it's our problem that we didn't have that category before. But nevertheless, it does place this mizmor in a unique situation. Yes, Anita.
It's more like in praise, because he's praising all. He's saying all the time how nice this is and how big, how good it is to be together, and how. So it's really, saying good things about getting together. Not only it's not praising Hashem, it's praising the idea of being together, of being
Right. So that's an interesting concept here, right? If most of our mizmorim are facing upward, right, towards God, all of a sudden here, where is God in this mizmor exactly? I'm not saying that he isn't, but I'm just saying that when we read the mizmor the first time, we gotta look, because it doesn't look like the praise or gratitude is necessarily facing upward. We know there's all these blessings. We have this feeling of it coming down, but at the same time, there's also an uncertainty. Are these blessings the product of what Anita is suggesting? The Shevet Achim Gam Yachad, the fact that everybody is sitting together, or is Jerusalem the place where the blessings are coming from, or something else, something to do with the Chirmon? We're not 100% sure. Okay, so that just shows that we've got what to learn, right? But I'm just sharing with you the complexity of this mizmor. By the way, who are the brothers?
Olam Israel.
Israel want everyone to live biyachad in peace.
So we're all subjective, right? Because all of us know the song, right? So for us, Shevet Achim Gam Yachad can only mean everybody. Okay, but today we're going to see, I'm going to bring a selection, and we'll see how much we manage to bring, of commentators, that each one of them has a different idea about who these Achim are. And there are other possibilities as well. Okay, so we'll get to that, please God, just now. But yes, one of the possibilities is everyone, Am Yisrael together, but there are other possibilities as well. We'll take a look at that. Okay, so that's one question we're going to have to try and understand. Another question we have is there are two things that are coming down, two objects of blessing. I don't know if that's the word, object of blessing, means of blessing, descriptions of blessing.
The
I
oil
don't know.
and the dew.
What?
The oil and the dew.
The oil and the dew. What do they symbolize?
Well,
Right.
maybe the Beit HaMikdash and rain.
Well,
brachot.
Maybe.
Dew is what keeps us going in the summer. It's the only thing that keeps us going. If we don't have dew, we don't have food. Even the dew in the Chirmon we need, because it gives us damp to make our plants grow. So it's a bracha in itself. And the oil has always been, the oil has always been connected with Malchut, no?
So Hillary is suggesting that it's not even a parable, that it's literal. Dew is dew and oil is oil. Simply don't make trouble, right? Right? So we have again the possibility of taking it as is, or to say that it's symbolic of another idea. So we're already seeing that this mizmor, what?
I see scale. I see scale in terms of the Hermon and the oil coming down on Aaron, the beard of Aaron. I see a large gap in terms of space and scale.
Mm.
Yes.
Aaron
let me add.
Anointed. Why did Aaron get anointed? He never was. He wasn't the king.
He was anointed. We'll get to that. But priests are also anointed.
Okay.
Yeah. But individual and national.
Somebody said something?
Individual and national. On an individual brachot on an individual level and on a national level.
Okay. So that's another possibility. Let me expand from what Diana said. Is that we have gaps here. Okay, so the gap that Diana pointed out to us is the gap between the size, like the Har Hermon and Aaron. But if you look at the last verse, our last verse says the dew of the Hermon that goes down on the mountains of Zion. Now, I think most of us are familiar with the map, right? And we live near Hararet Zion. And it takes 4 hours to get there if you're driving by car. So there ain't no dew that's going down to the Hermon that's landing down over here, right?
Right.
And whoever wrote this Mizmor knew that, right? They didn't live in China. So there's clearly something else that's going on. In other words, we have to also try and understand this geographical gap.
Mhm.
Okay, do you see the difficulty?
But no, the snow that falls on the Hermon comes down through the rivers to all of Eretz Yisrael.
Okay,
That's what
so
flows.
Sue
Yeah,
is
but it
offering
takes
us
about
a very
20
nice
years.
solution. Okay, wait, 1 second. And Tanya's next. Sue is making a very nice suggestion to say, wait, it's true that the Hermon is far off all the way at the top. Nevertheless, the water, the snow, melts into rivers, goes into the Kinneret, and then we have now the Movila Artzi, although we don't really use it so much, but the Movila Artzi, the water comes and gives life to the rest of the country. So the fact that it's far away doesn't mean anything. Just like Aaron, when he's anointed, you're anointed here. Okay, this is where they're anointed in the the Greek chi shape over here. So even though he's anointed on his head, on his forehead, the oil goes down onto his beard and goes onward. It keeps flowing and gets to other places. Okay, Tanya, what did you want to say?
I just wanted to say that it's very interesting that they're using oil and water when oil and water don't mix. But in the same hand, it's matov u'manaim shevet achim gam yachad. So if you're using one to describe the oil and one to describe the water, usually they don't mix, but here they do. There's some sort of harmony
nice.
between the oil and the water. So I thought that was just
I think that's
very interesting.
nice. Because
Also, the way
usually-
you describe, sorry, also the way to describe the way it falls, you know, the oil falls on the beard and the dew on the mountain. It could be the same kind of, you know, you could picture it the same way, the way they fall. The different
Yes.
sort of substances, they don't mix, you can't put them together, but the way they fall on, well, they're supposed to, the way they come down is probably the same idea, the same way.
Okay, so let me put together what both of you have said. Okay, what Tanya pointed out to us is that we usually look at unity as being made up of similars, right? We're united, we all think the same way, we feel the same way, we go to the same shul, I don't know, we eat the same hechsher, I don't know, whatever it is that pulls us together. What Tanya is saying that no, we're all Jews, and it could be there's oil and there's water, but we're achim, and therefore it is possible to have unity even among elements that seem like they don't mix. My late mother-in-law used to have on her door a picture of etrogim and a silver etra case. There were yellow etrogim there, and green etrogim, and Yemeni etrogim, and little etrogim, and it said underneath it, all one family. Okay, so it's a little bit that same idea, right? There's oil, and you need the oil, and there's water, and you need the water, and they belong together, even if they each have their own traits. Now, going into what Anita said, it brings us into something which I didn't have a chance to go into. Okay, so I'm just going to point out it in this thing, because Anita also spoke about it. If you look at our 3 psukim, okay, so our first pasuk is Hinei matov u'manaim shevet achim gam yachad. That's pretty clear, even though we don't know who the brothers are. We all know what it's talking about. And then pasuk bet and pasuk gimel, we have 2 different ways of understanding them. All pasuk bet and pasuk gimel parallel, and each one of them explains in a different way this tov, this na'im, both tov of shemen and tov of tal. That's one possibility, right? It's the same. And a different possibility is that the third pasuk is an expansion of second pasuk, and not that it's parallel. Okay, I'm leaving it open for a moment. Okay, but because Anita brought it up, I thought that I would point it out to everybody as well. Okay, so before we go into one of the main things I want to go into with you, which is very, very interesting, which is who are the brothers, and what is the oil, and what is the oil, and what is the tal, and why is it so good? Okay. Before that, I just want to share with you something very interesting that I read. An article by Yosef Breslavi. Okay, he's also he didn't take the solution that we took now about the rain, the snow melting, and the water coming down and sustaining the rest of the country. But he's also, it's unclear for him, Tim, how the dew of the Hermon can be coming down on Zion, on the mountains of Zion. And he makes a few very interesting observations. The first observation he makes is has to do with the status of HaChermon. First of all, how many of you know what the name, how many names of the Hermon are you familiar with? And that's not Hermon and Hermon. Anybody know any other name that the Hermon has?
Is it sneer from the Torah?
Also sneer, yes.
Mhm.
Very good. Yeah.
Sirion and Sion. Okay, the Hermon is 4 names. Okay, why does it have so many names? Because it's the highest mountain. And whenever you have a mountain that's so high, it becomes a mountain of significance. Very sadly, right? When we go back all these hundreds, thousands of years to society that lived here, the Canaanim, etc., they were idol worshippers. The Hermon was seen as a place where idols were worshipped because it's such a high, like the Olympus in Greece, in Athens. So here also we've got like a high mountain. And I think Claire Mangano, when he did his archaeological excavations, found on the top of the mountain, there is an area which is in the highest part of the mountain, the cliff part of the mountain. There's a wall which is about 2.5 meters wide in different areas, made up of chiseled stones, right? With an area for sacrifices. And there is a Greek ktovet, a Greek
Plaque.
not a
Plaque?
plaque exactly. It's
Inscription?
Thank you. Yes, a Greek inscription that says, translated into Hebrew, במצוות האל הגדול ביותר והקדוש, כל הנשבעים or כל הנודרים, הלאה מפה. Right? An inscription that says that in the name of the holy God, whatever, that keep away, get out, right?
Mhm.
Now, that's interesting because the word Hermon, according to the Ramban, okay, but not only according to him, according to the Rambam, comes from what root? Think of the word Hermon. You can look at the word, it's on the sheet.
Cherem, yeah.
Cherem. Cherem. Anybody know what cherem means?
To be aside, to be apart.
Put somebody in a chayra.
Keep away.
Excommunicate.
Keep away, something that's set aside, right? Or something which is so holy that you can't come close. Right? In Arabic also, haram,
Yeah.
right? It's the same
Okay.
root, right? It's something which is holy, which is set aside, which is, and I'm just going to turn my heating off. Okay, sorry. It's just,
Haram is not a sin in Arabic?
No, it's
No, it means
something
about the
to-
same as it does in Hebrew, a cherem.
Oh. I don't know.
Right, set aside, not
when
Not
it had
accepted,
first,
not part of accepted culture.
now in Mexico, the Sephardic community, the
Yeah.
kids used to use haram as a sin. It's a sur. Instead of saying asur, it's a sur.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In Arabic also, it's a family of words that have to do with set aside, not allowed, wholly
Uh-huh.
beyond you, right? Like this type of
Mm.
emotion, so to say. Which interestingly enough can sometimes be a positive word, can muhram la Hashem, set aside wholly to God, or cherem,
Mhm.
set aside, no one's allowed to touch it. Okay, maybe if
Good,
we get a
good.
chance at some point to learn about cherem, the word cherem in Hebrew, we'll see that there has many different meanings in the Torah, but some of them seem to be contradicting each other, but they all come from the same concept.
It's funny because when my mother uses the word haram, it's usually in connection with something, when something bad happens. When you lose something of importance, or if you were in a car accident, God forbid, the first word would come out haram, poor thing, like it touches the soul, and then the next word would be kapara. It was a kapara on behalf of a sin. Haram that it happened, but it's a kapara on what bad could have been to the person.
Yes. It's a word with many, many meanings and many, many usages.
What's
Okay?
interesting also, Tiffy, is that sometimes dafka people who are put in, sorry, I stepped aside, it was very important. Sometimes when a person is put in cherem, it's dafka on a principled issue, and it's a controversial issue, and they actually don't deserve to be put in a cherem, but they're put in a cherem because they touched a chord, but they're doing something very, very, very important, and they took a stand on something very, very important.
Right.
So it's like contra,
Interesting.
counterintuitive almost.
You're bringing in the sociological issue of haramot. When does a community feel threatened that it puts somebody in a cherem? Okay, but that's beyond the scope of our lesson. Okay,
Right.
so we'll leave that meanwhile. Okay, let's get back to our har chirmon. Okay, by the way, if anybody's ever heard of the book Tzavat Chanoch, so in the book of Sefer Chanoch, he writes that in Chumash Bereshit, when it talks about Bnei Elim, they came down and they took not Adam, that was where they lived. Okay, now I'm not, it's very, very Greek sounds to me, but I'm just telling you that's who it is. So what Rav Stavsky suggests is, first of all, having the Chirmon mentioned, and also in Mizmor Tavor v'Chirmon Yiranenu, right, is a statement that however high this mountain is, it's subject to God. In other words, it doesn't have its own stature, its own gods. No. Everything is connected to Hashem, and the glory of the mountain is actually the glory of Hashem, of the Kadosh Baruch Hu. Now, based on this understanding of what Chirmon being connected to the word cherem, something which is mekudash, he comes up with an interesting statement. First of all, the word tal. We are used to the word tal meaning in modern Hebrew just Jew. But quite a few commentators point out that the word tal in the Tanakh sometimes means any type of precipitation. For instance, if you look in Mishlei, I'm sorry, I didn't give you the pasuk. Mishlei Gimel pasuk Kaf. You can look afterwards. Tehomot nivkau ushchakim yirafu tal. Tehomot nivkau. The waters of the ground gushed up. Ushchakim, the skies yirafu, poured down, and then the word is tal. Now, clearly the word is not dew, because there's a parable here, and you don't gush down tal. Tal settles very, very gently down. So this is one of the examples for the word tal meaning heavy rain, for instance. So the word tal, if you would open up a concordance, right, and you look through all the sightings of the word tal in the Tanakh, you would find it's not always Jew. It could sometimes mean rain. It could sometimes mean a flood, like a pouring down rain. It could mean all different things. So what he suggests is when it says Tal Hermon, what it means is holy rain. The holy rain that falls onto the mountains of Yerushalayim. Okay, so all of a sudden, a whole geographical side of the Mizmor is like gone, right? We don't have the Hermon anymore. We're just in Jerusalem, okay, according to this interpretation, but we don't have our geographical problem, and instead we've got the rains that come down, holy rain, that come to Yerushalayim and bring life, okay? I'm sharing the commentary with you because I think it's very interesting. I think it's also interesting how to deal with a difficulty, a geographical difficulty. In my stomach, do I feel that this is the answer? I'm not sure, because you lose out something in the similarity that Anita pointed out of the oil going onto the head and going down and flowing down, the same way the Hermon is like the head, Hermon Asaba with his white hair, like the head of the whole of the country. There is something in the parable of the two similes which is lost if we accept Breslavi's interpretation. However,
That's what I meant by scale.
what?
That's what I meant by scale.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
So, however, it's poetry, and poetry is made to have several levels and several meanings, right? And sometimes it's not even, you either accept this interpretation or you accept that interpretation. Both interpretations can coexist simultaneously. And that's what enriches our experience of reading the Mizmor so much, because we have lots of different emotions and lots of different thoughts that come at the same time. Okay, so now that we've, let's get back to our main question, right? Who are the brothers? What is the oil? What is the tal? Okay, and and see different commentators that have been brought. So the first commentator I brought you is the Radak. Now, the Radak brings his father. So the first commentary we're going to see is the Radak's father's commentary. Let me just see. Can you see the whole of Radak's father's commentary on the thing? Yes, I don't have to move the source sheet yet. Okay, just tell me when to move the source sheet because I don't have it. I have you in front of me and not the source sheet in front of me. Okay, so let me read the Radak. Okay, and I apologize that I didn't translate it all into English. Shira Ma'alot.
Did you say Radak's father?
Yes.
Who is Radak's father?
They are a dynasty of commentators. I don't remember who his father was, but they are a few generations of commentators who were linguists, commentators, philosophers, rabbis. So you, was it Rabbi Moshe?
Abu Radak, Lynn writes.
Wait, I can cheat. I'll cheat at the end of the lesson because I don't want to take time from the lesson. But you can also all cheat. It's called Google, right? Rabbi David Kimchi. Okay, that's the commentator that we most commonly use is the Radak, Rabbi David Kimchi. So if you just write Rabbi David Kimchi, it will tell you who his father was, who his son was. And if any of you happen to have an old Judaica encyclopedia, I'm sure you all remember the Judaica encyclopedia. Very, very interesting. Open up Kimchi, and you'll see the whole dynasty and each one of the people in the family, what interesting lives and things that they did. But at the moment we are looking at his father. Perash Adoni Aviza. This is what my father said. Ki al kol Israel ne'emar shem kulam achim. Shevet achim, right? Who said at the beginning Shevet achim? Anita, I think it was. It's everybody. It's Am Yisrael, right? They also knew the song. Amar, Shiyeh Shivtam b'Yerushalayim yachad tov v'na'im. When they all sit together in Jerusalem, right? Everyone comes together to Beit HaMikdash. They're not fighting. They're not arguing. They're not throwing ogim at each other, right? Ze tov v'na'im. כמו השמן הטוב שיורד על זקן אהרון ועל בגדיו. It's good like the oil of Aaron that goes from, that pours all the way down onto his beard and onto his clothing. Okay, let me just explain something here. If take a look at the last word in the second pasuk. Okay, Skan Aaron shiyored al pi midotav. What does the word midotav mean? Okay, don't look at the English because it's a difficult word, so it's a translation. Okay, so they had to make a decision. If you look at the Hebrew, what do you think the word means?
Midot, his
the qualities.
characteristics and qualities.
Yeah.
Okay,
Not-
so here we
nothing
have
to
an
do with his
opinion that it's
collar. Why would it be his
characteristic.
collar?
Wait, one second. However, right, oil is physical and characteristic is what's the word? Spiritual, but it's not concrete. So it's very hard for oil to be poured over someone's qualities. So that might not be a good solution over here. Okay, keep going. And what do in Hebrew, right? How do you say an army uniform?
Madim.
Adim, right?
But this could be
How
his
do you say a
measurements.
police
Midotav is
uniform?
his measurements, but it doesn't help.
It's connected to measurement. That the word, we have this word in other places in the Tanakh also. Mido. Mido meaning a garment. Okay. For instance, after was it Hanun or his father when they died, and the king sent messengers to the Shiva, and then he cut their clothing in half and he sent and shaved them, right? Remember that story? Okay, I'll have to look it up for you exactly. The source, that's the word is used, that they cut their madim. Okay, so the word madim can mean clothing, and that's why your English translation explains that it's his collar, because that's his beard. That is the most likely thing, that the oil goes down onto the beard and then it goes onto the collar of his garments. Okay, but if we're already looking at this pasuk, what is going down in this pasuk? Look at the Hebrew. I'm going to read the Hebrew again. Don't look at the English. Okay. כשמן הטוב על הראש, יורד על הזקן, זקן הארון שיורד על פי מידותיו. What is going down? In the first part and in the second part.
Both the oil and the beard.
So one possibility, who said that? I couldn't see you.
Lynn.
Hi, Lynn. Okay, so what Lynn is suggesting is that in the first part of the pasuk, we have the shemen goes down onto the beard, and just like at the beginning, we saw the shirashurim, those chains of the word that links and goes down. So we have the oil goes down onto the beard, and then the beard goes down and covers the clothing. That's one possibility. I don't think that's the possibility translation took, right? Because what's the other possibility?
That the oil continues down the clothing.
Right. The other possibility is the oil goes down onto the beard, and from the beard, it goes down onto the garments. Okay. So we are going to see that the commentators are going to address both those possibilities. Some commentators are going to use the possibility that Lynn suggested, and some commentators are going to use the possibility that Chava suggested. Okay. So I'm going back now to Radak's father. Oops. Yep. Okay. כמו השמן הטוב שיורד על זקן אהרון ועל בגדיו. Okay, so Radak's father took which interpretation, Lynn's or Chava's? Okay, I read you the Shira.
That the shemen did. The shemen went to both.
Yes. So a few people said, but they didn't unmute themselves. Okay, so it's the oil, okay, which was the second interpretation which Chava suggested, and that is an interpretation that Radak's father takes. Oh, כטל חרמון שיורד עליו, וכטל שיורד על הררי ציון, שהוא מבורך מכל טל שיורד בעולם. Wait, how did he get to tal al hareret Zion? So if you take a look a bit further down at the words of Radak the son, okay, Pasuk Gimel, wait, I have to move this 1 minute. Shniya. Let me do this. Where is that? But I can't see well. Okay, so we are looking at this. Okay, we're looking at this. Okay, this is the sun. He's explaining that. It says when it says ketal chermon shiyored al haret Zion, what it means is really we have to read the word tal as if it's appearing twice, right? Ketal omed bimkom shnaim. One word is being used instead of two. Ke'ilu amar, as if he said ketal chermon, ketal shiyored al haret Zion, right? I remember you. No, that's not a good example. Keep running. It's the first house and go upstairs. So what I really mean to say, keep running to get to the first house and then keep running until you get upstairs. I only used the verb once, right? And I meant it for the rest, for both, what's the word? For both activities, right? In Hebrew also, you can have the same noun is serving two masters. That's how you would say it in Hebrew. That they're serving, the word tal is serving two masters. The tal is serving the master of the Chermon and serving the master of Hareret Zion. Tal Chermon and tal of Hareret Zion. Okay? So Radak's father, okay, he sees that Pasuk Bet and Pasuk Gimel are parallel, right? Like Anita suggested. And he say that they are describing the Nimshal, the parable. Shevet Achim Gam Yachad. Brothers sitting together in Jerusalem without fighting is as amazing as the oil of Aaron being anointed and going, the shefa of going down. It's as beautiful as the dew that goes on the Chermon and the dew that comes down on Hareret Zion and gives life to everyone. Okay? So according to him, the brothers are, who are the brothers? All of
Oil
Israel.
and water, oil and water.
Brothers are all of Israel. Shevet Achim Gam Yachad, Shevet Israel, all of Israel sitting together, that is the two brothers. Okay? And the shemen and the tal, the oil and the tal, are both parallel, and they are symbolic of things that give life, that are nice and give life. Okay? Because that's what we have at the end, Na'im and Chayim, which is exactly those two things. Okay? What time is it? Do we have time? You need a break. 1 second. Okay, let me just finish this off with the Mitudat David, okay, before we get to the Radak the son. Okay, so Mitudat David gives a very, very similar idea. Okay? הנה מה טוב ומנעים הדבר, כאשר ישבו על אדמתם כל ישראל, הנקראים אחים לגודל האחווה שביניהם. When all of Israel sit together and they are act in brotherly fashion, you call them brothers, גם יחד, ויהיו גם יחד במלכות אחת, ולא יחצו לשתי ממלכות. They will live together in one kingdom, and they won't be divided into two kingdoms. What are the two kingdoms? Yehuda and Israel, okay?
Right.
We're
But that
gonna
was well
finish up,
after
no more.
David HaMelech.
It's the time of David HaMelech, or
After
Mizmor is a
David
bit
HaMelech.
later.
It's well
It
after.
could be after David HaMelech, yes. So we have here, what are we talking about? What this utopian thing that we're wishing for? All of the Jewish people living together in one mamlacha, in one community, not split, not fighting. השמן הטוב, והרי הדבר דומה כשמן המשחה, right? The oil of anointment, הנתון על הראש בשפע רב, עד כי ירד משם על הזקן, והוזקן הארון שהיה הראשון לנמשכים בשמן המשחה. Right? Why is he talking about Aaron? Because Aaron was the first that was anointed with shemen hamishcha. Why was anointed with shemen hamishcha? He was the first Kohen Gadol, right? Nobody before him was anointed. So this is something very special about this oil. שיורד, אשר ירד עוד על פי מלבושיו, בפתיחת בית הצבא, right? Again, the same idea. Keeps going down, כמו shemen hamishcha. מכל מקום, אוקיי, בא השם ממנו על מקומות מחולפים, על כי הם הדבוקות זו בזו. The oil was put over here. How did the oil end up on his clothing? Because they were connected. The oil, his head is connected to the beard is connected to his clothing, and that's how the clothing gets the oil. אם כן, כל בית ישראל אחת, בראש אחד מהם תתחלק אז השפע לכולם. If we all stick together, if we all cling together, if we all are connected to each other, then all the plenty that Hashem brings upon us will reach everybody. Everybody will get the shefa. And how do we get the shefa? Through the king. The king heads the people. There's one king, united monarchy, and everybody is close together. The oil that which the king is anointed goes down. The shefa that Hashem gives through the king goes down and reaches everybody in the country. כטל חרמון, כמו הטל שיורד מהר חרמון על הרי ציון הנמוכים, the same way the Hermon is high and הרי ציון are low, right? כך בא השפע באמצעות המלך ליתר העם. That is how the plenty gets the people, because the king is exalted and he can reach high up and he can receive such great gifts. So it's through him that it flows down and reaches to everybody. Okay? And what does he say? כי שם בציון ציווה השם את הברכה בחיים עד העולם. רצה לומר, בציון בא השפע ותחל לראשונה על המלך, המולך בה, right? We're starting off with Yerushalayim. That's the center, that's the heart, that's the place that's close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and the king that reigns as Hashem wants him to is like a tzinor, is like a pipe for allowing the shepherd to reach everybody else. Okay, so according to the Mitzudot, who are the brothers?
All Jews.
It's not just all Jews, it's the two kingdoms. Okay, it's an expansion of the idea. The two kingdoms are now brothers, right? And what is all the tribes, and specifically the two kingdoms that had quite difficult wars between them. Okay, what is the oil and the dew?
It's the shefa that comes from Hashem.
It's the shefa that comes from Hashem, and it comes through the king. Okay, so I'm going to leave you off at the moment. Okay, please God, next week we'll try and fit in two more ideas of who are the two brothers. Okay, just so you'll see how wide the different possibilities are. And meanwhile, wait, let me take a look if there are any questions that people wrote.
I just wanted to say that maybe also because the way it comes down from the mountain, it also gives shefa to all the smaller mountains, the ones that are close to Yerushalayim. And then we also get all the fruits and whatever comes from this water, from growing all this in the mountains, the mountains of Yerushalayim. And it gets there, like you say, by the ice or whatever, or by rain or however it comes, but it comes from the rain that came down to the Hermon, and then it comes to the smaller mountains. So it's also bringing the shefa to the.
Yes, it can be both material and spiritual shefa. Yes,
It's not just bringing the shefa, it's sharing the shefa.
Sharing the shefa, right?
Yes.
It's a beautiful idea.
The mountains.
It's a beautiful. It's a very beautiful, beautiful mizmor.
And thank you. Okay, thank you. It's good to see everybody, or at least I don't see you. I see your names, and I just want to thank you all for really the warmth and caring that you showed during. I guess the Shiva, the visits, and the WhatsApps, and the calls, everything that I got. It was heartwarming, and we should share in smachot together. I know some of you knew my dad, and it was very heartwarming. So thank you very much. We are in continuing in Pirkei Avos. We're up to, and if you don't have it in front of you, I'll give you a moment to get a copy of Pirkei Avos, so you have it. I don't have any special sources for today, so what you really need is the text. We're up to in Perek Aleph, and in some Pirkei Avos is because of some are combined and not. It's either Mishnah Yud Dalet or Mishnah Tet Vav, either Mishnah 14 or 15, which begins with Shammai Omer. Shammai says. That's where we're up to. That's where we're up to. And before we see what Shammai says, I think Shammai often gets a bad rap. Contrasted Hillel is the nice one, and we look at Shammai, and you think of Shammai as a curmudgeon, and what we see, as we're going to see both by what he says and what his life and what he did, is that's not really accurate. I have we'll see about Shammai. Shammai, the Machloket Shammai v'Hillel. Firstly, both Shammai and Hillel, and it came from the two schools that they founded, Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel, were a paradigm, an example of a Machlokas l'shem Shamayim, Machlokas which was for the purpose of Avodas Hashem, to try to look for truth, to look for the right way, and not in any way personal. And this was something which was very, very, very significant. And one of the things I see, someone wrote it, Judith wrote it, but that the Gemara makes a point how they, even though they had various arguments, they intermarried the families of Hillel and Shammai. Lo nimna'u. They did not say, oh, this is not mine, these are not my people, but they understood that they were looking for the same cause, maybe with different drachim. There's something to that where people can disagree and still be agreeable and still get along and still love each other. And Hillel and Shammai certainly were examples of that. Shammai, again, is seen more as from various stories where the ger came to Shammai and said, teach me the whole Torah on one foot. And Shammai, he said, Shammai threw the guy out. And he went to Hillel, and Hillel did not. And Hillel was makari him with a nice word and said, with that which you don't want done to yourself, don't do to others. And the rest is perush. It's beautiful what Hillel did. But Shammai said, this is it. Shammai stood for You know, this is the way it is. You know, we can't, sometimes you want everything to be nice and sugar coated, and you know, there's no real values, and there's no real, you know. Shammai stood and said, like they say in Hebrew Dugri, that this, I don't know if it's Hebrew or Arabic, but it's there in Dugri, that this is the way it is, and you can't change reality. And sometimes we have to be very straight about it. And different arguments between Hillel and Shammai we might have, you know, spoken about, and the idea that Shammai stood on, you know, we don't sing Shammai's words at the wedding. We sing Hillel's words. Well, you know, Ketzad Merakadim Lifnei Hakala, Kamana v'Chasuda. You say, so she's so pretty, she's not so pretty. She's such a nice girl, she's not such a nice girl. Kamana v'Chasuda. You know, truth and exactness maybe take a back seat to Shalom, according to Hillel. According to Shammai, Kala Kamot Shehi. We want to say nice things according to Shammai. Shammai, as we're going to see, believed in being nice as well. He wasn't a nasty person. He wasn't just a crotchety old man. But he believed you got to say things the way they are. You got to say things. Kala Kamot Shehi. Don't make up things. Don't say things which are not so. And you see this in a lot of areas one can take. There's even interesting discussions about taking a lot of the arguments of Hillel and Shammai and sort of blending them into a hashkafat hachayim. And I'll just mention, maybe I mentioned it last time, so I don't want to, about Hillel. I don't remember, you know, about Hillel. With the famous machloket when it comes to Neirot Chanukah, that Shammai says you start with 8 and go down, and we go like Beit Hillel, that it's Mosif v'holech, and various reasons why he says Pochet v'holech and he says Mosif v'holech, but it's explained. One of the famous ideas which is explained is that Shammai saw the potential in things, so he started with 8 because the first day of Hanukkah, there were 8 days of potential miracle, and and Hillel saw the manifestation. This is what's in front of me. You can understand this, how they treated that ger also in terms of the way they treated them. You could read it into, but it's not, you know, you can, it's neither here nor there. There's a machloket whether you make the bracha, Bore me'orei ha'esh, Shabbos night, we make the bracha on the fire. We go like Beis Hillel, that it's Borei Me'orei Ha'esh. We make a bracha on the flames which are manifest to us, that we see. According to Beit Shammai, the bracha was Borei Me'or Ha'esh. You make the bracha on the element of fire, as opposed to what's manifest to us. So one can, you know, try to weave different themes into the various arguments between Hillel and Shammai. But, you know, be that as it may, let's see, we have one Mishnah here on what Shammai tells us important things, and they are truly important things, which I think Shammai teaches us. The first, he says, if we look at the Mishnah, again, it's either Yud Dalet or Tet Vav, 3 statements that Shammai made. Often these statements came in groups of 3, not always, but often. Number 1 is he says, Aseh Toratcha Keva. Make your Torah in something permanent in your life, something set. You know, we have in our lives things which are kavua, things which are more set, and things which are arai. When we get around to it, we do it. When we have time, we do it. So Shammai is saying, set your priorities straight. Aseh Toratcha Keva. Almost, he's not saying how much you learn. He's not saying you have to learn this many hours or that many hours, but make it something which is a permanent fixture in your lives, in our lives. That's what he says. Aseh Toratcha Keva, that if you say, you know, you make your Torah Keva and your Melacha Arai. Now, you know, in our generation, in our times, it's not necessarily practical in most of the jobs that we hold. You know, you can't, I'm going to show up, you show up 10:30 to work and the boss says, where you been? I said, I have a Seder. You say, listen, you know, it's a Chaim. very nice. Work starts at 9 o'clock. Well, I say to us, right, you'll find yourself outside looking for a job. So obviously a person has to take into account the times that we live and the jobs that we have. Doesn't mean quite. In those days, people were able to maybe open you hear the story that the Chafetz Chaim or whatever opened up the grocery store. When he had enough money, for that week or for those days, he closed the grocery store. Somebody came and they needed milk at the makolet at the grocery store. And the guy who owns the makolet says, I closed. Well, what do you mean you closed? How can you close 3 o'clock in the afternoon? I have enough money. I went to the base medrash. So things don't always, we have to understand the times that we live in, but we can understand the concept of things in our lives which are keva. And what Shammai is saying to us in, I think, a greater message, Aseh Toratcha keva, the things which are important to us in life, make those things keva. Make those things the permanent fixtures in our lives. The Torah, the Limud Torah, the mitzvos, those things should be keva in our lives. Is a beautiful story, a beautiful mashal, which maybe you've heard before. I've heard it before, but I've heard it with different lessons. But I think the lesson is really what Shammai is saying. The story is told, and again, I'm sure that some of you have heard it. Excuse me. Of the teacher who came in front of her class, and pulled out a big glass jar, and she went and then she said, "What's this glass jar? Is it full or it's empty?" They said, "It's empty. There's nothing in it." So then she took a bunch of stones and she put them in the jar, and she said, "Class, children, is the jar full now?" And they said yes. And she went and she pulled out from behind her desk a bag of pebbles, and she poured the pebbles in. And they said, okay. And she said, "Now is it full?" And they said, "Yes, teacher, now it's full." And then she pulled out a bag of sand and she poured the sand in. And they said, and she said, "Now is it full?" "Yes, now with the rocks and the pebbles and the sand, now it's full." And then she pulled out a pitcher of water and she poured the water in. And only then they said, "Now it's full." And she said, you're right, now it's full." And then she turns to them and she said, "What's the lesson? What do you see from here? What's the lesson?" And I've heard this said with different lessons. You can always do more. You can always put more in. You think something is, which I think are good lessons, important lessons. But to me, this lesson is Shammai's lesson. If you put the water or the sand in, and then you try to get the big rocks in, they won't go. There won't be room. Those big rocks, those are the important things in our lives. First thing we need to do, what Shammai is teaching us, and a lesson to us, is we have to take Aseh Torascha keva, take the important things, the rocks, the chesed, the family, the things like that, put them in the jar first. There'll be room for other things then. There'll be room for enjoyment. There'll be room for culture. There'll be room for there could be room for lots of things in there. But if we don't put those rocks in first, we may turn around and say, we can't get those rocks in. So the idea of what Shammai is telling us, Aseh Toratcha keva, is basically in one word, prioritize, and set our priorities and live by our priorities, and how meaningful that is. That message that Shammai is telling us, his first lesson, Aseh Toratcha keva. Second statement of Shammai is Emor ma'at va'aseh harbeh, something which our generation can certainly benefit from ingraining this idea when everything's about words and saying and promoting and networking and what am I going to do for you, and here's this, and more ma'at v'aseh harbeh, say a little and do a lot. And the examples given, of course, are Avram Avinu, who says to the Malachim, I'll bring you a little something to eat. And then he brings a whole feast for them to eat. And Ephron, who the Gemara says, Ephron Hachiti, who was the ultimate used car salesman, he said, I'll in front of everybody. He says, "Oh, what is this between us? I'll give it to you. I'm giving it to you." And he ended up taking full money, full exchange rate, no breaks, and he took it all. He was emor ma'at va'afilu emor habeh va'afilu ma'at lo asa, and even a little he didn't do. And basically it comes to something where, I could talk about it all the time, but we all understand this lesson. I could talk about it for a long time. Talk is cheap. Talk is cheap. And, sometimes it's nice to, you think, I used to wonder, I once want like, why can't you say a lot and do a lot? Sometimes it's nice to say to the person, "Oh, come, I'll do this for you. I'll do this for you. I'll do this for you." So is that worse than saying a little and doing a lot? The answer seems to be yes. Because if you say a little, you're modest. You don't already, I'm going to do, it's not self aggrandizing, and here's what I'm going to do. Here's all this. It comes with a modesty plus a giving in a modest way, without making a big show of it, and without saying, "Here's what I'm going to do." It's a wonderful, beautiful midah, and I think we talked about last time we studied together about the מישהו יכול לענות לה על זה? תודה. That talk is truly, it was, and Hillel said, just to do things, just do it. And we say, I'll do it another time, and I'll get around to it, and I don't need to make I don't need to do it right now. But the idea is to just do it. Don't talk so much, and do it. Words, we live in, again, I don't know historically, words could have always been cheap, and people use them in various ways. I think in our generation, with the with WhatsApps, which we're all shackled to, and emails and words and talk. I have on my WhatsApp a message where when people send me a WhatsApp, it says in Hebrew and in English, "Please don't leave a voice message." Because I hate voice message on the, I just don't want to, you don't want to write, and you want to leave me a minute and a half message about something, not anybody, nobody here does it, but somebody wants to leave me a long message. So I have to sit and find a quiet place to listen to your message. I'm not really, I haven't gotten to, I want to get to the point that I really don't listen to them. Sometimes I don't want to be, rude and really not listen to them. But the talk and words we're inundated with all kinds of words, and as opposed to saying, you do, this is the action. So this is Shammai. Shammai is saying, "Emor ma'at va'aseh harbeh." Don't say a little, but do a lot. And finally, his third statement, which leaves no doubt as to who Shammai was, and that he wasn't just a curmudgeon. Accept everyone. Sever is like svara, to understand, to see, to look, to care about another person. To relate to everybody else. Very interesting. We don't think about too much what that expression is. To really relate and care about everyone, that we talk to everyone. For a lot of people, unfortunately, sometimes talking to someone else is just an excuse for me to say what I want to say. I don't really listen. I just want to look for a hechi timtza, so I can tell my stories or tell my ideas or tell my thoughts, and to do it all. But mekabel kol adam b'sefer panim yafos is the opposite of that. To, first of all, pleasantly, nicely accept everyone that you see, and also b'sever panim yafos, to relate to them. You know, we really see, you know, it's the opposite of being self-absorbed. So we look around, and you know, I can't help, and I'm not, you know, you can't help it. Just the experiences inform the way we think. To me, over the past, you know, past week or two, sitting Shiva in Neve Daniel for a few days, Thursday, Friday, Shabbos night, going right from the Shiva to the airport and flying in to sit the rest of the Shiva with my brothers and sisters, which was very meaningful to me. But being in that period in the airport was so interesting to me, because, you know, people have said, and I'm sure people, you know, we're not youngsters here, so you know, I guess I joined the club, but I imagine that most people here have experienced it. You know, they say that, you know, getting up from Shiva is, you know, is harder sometimes in the Shiva, because you know, when you're in the Shiva, people are focused. You're able to talk about the niftar and it's heartwarming, and the memories. And then you get up and you walk out and you go to the airport, or you go to the makolet, and life goes on. And nobody's paying, you know, even if you're walking in the airport with a ripped shirt, people, you know, and then no complaints. I'm not, you know, but you see it. I don't know if I did. Now I learned to if I see somebody when I'm flying, I've seen it. Maybe I did. I'm not sure if I did it each time, but you know, you see somebody, you have to ask them a long story and this and that, but to go over. A young Hasidic couple walked by me in the airport, and the guy stopped. He looked at me. He walked over to me. And he said, "Min hashamayim tenuchamu." He did, you know, but most of us, unfortunately, are self-absorbed, and you see it, you know. Then, you know, and sometimes with age, sometimes with age comes more self-absorption. And what Shammai is telling us is to, and this goes across the spectrum, is look, you see somebody. You notice them, take note of them. They're not, you know, if and be makabel them, to savor with svara, with understanding who they are, what they're going through, what it is, good, bad, nothing, this, that they're not just, you know, people. It's like the New York, I used to call the New York subway mentality. You know, you sit on the subway car, and there's like a wall. You don't see anybody. You know, nothing. You know, in New York subways, you got to be careful. You don't want to give somebody a look. It'll, you know, it can cause you trouble. So maybe there are other issues. But in the Yerushalayim buses, there's often the same thing. You walk, you this. People don't know this. People look through each other, and they don't look at each other. And not that we have to bother each person who we see, but is that you pierce a human being. This is a tzelem Elokim, that we need to move away from self-absorption and to really look at others. And this is what Shammai is teaching us. Is to relate and to see everybody, to save their panim yafos. So these statements of Shammai, excuse me, are so significant, and so I think so meaningful in terms of setting our priorities, in terms of speaking little. Action is what counts, and certainly to be mekaber l'kol adam b'sefer panim yafos. The next Mishnah. Sima, you look like you're talking, but I can't hear. But you're on mute.
As you were talking, I heard the connection for the first time between the Hebrew and the English. It's savor the moment when you stop to say hello to someone. Savor the moment.
That's beautiful.
I never thought of it.
I'll remember that. That's very nice.
Yeah.
Very nice. Beautiful. The next Mishnah now begins, you know, after the Zugot of Hillel and Shammai, we have the dynasty of Hillel, that there was a recognition that this was a family, and the Gemara talks about was an important family. So the Nisiim, going literally hundreds of years, we're talking about towards the end of Bayit Sheni, through the destruction of Bayit Sheni, where the family of Hillel, most who were named either Gamliel, Rabbi Gamliel, or Shimon, or Yehuda, that those were three prevalent names in the family of the Nisi'im. Now, I didn't give you, maybe next time, if we get together, you can look it up, the whole family tree. They're not all mentioned here in the Mishnayot, but the family of Hillel now, we're going to have, again, this is not, the Pirkei Avos is not a historic book, and there are people who aren't mentioned here, who are big people. It doesn't say the great sayings of all the rabbis. There are some rabbis who didn't make it into Pirkei Avot for whatever reason. But right now we have a little bit of the line of coming from Hillel, starting with Rabban Gamliel. At this point, people were given, this is the grandson of Hillel, it was given the term, the honorific. The other people weren't. Many of them, as we see, were called Shammai and Hillel and Yehoshua ben Parachia, Nitai Harbeli and Antigonos. They were called by their names with no honorific beforehand. At this point, the given doesn't mean these were greater, but there was a title given, the title of Rabban. The title of Rabban was given, and Rabban Gamliel had this title. And he was the first Rabban Gamliel, also referred to, known as Rabban Gamliel HaZaken, the elder Rabban Gamliel. Not to be confused with his grandson, who is not mentioned here in Pirkei Avot, who was Rabban Gamliel de Yavne, was Rabban Gamliel of Yavne, who was the Nasi right after, during the time of the Churban. And if you remember correctly, one of the requests of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai from Spasinos, Vespasian, was leave, don't kill out the line of the Nesiim, including Rabban Gamliel. And that was, and therefore Rabban Gamliel de Yavne was installed at that point as the Nasi. But his grandfather was this Rabban Gamliel, who's referred to as Rabban Gamliel HaZaken. Rabban Gamliel HaZaken lived, again, to give historic perspective, probably, somewhere is about 50, 60 years before the Churban Bayis Sheni. So in the year, 1020 CE AD, CE was the time when Rabban Gamliel was the Nasi. Rabban Gamliel lived at the time when the Sanhedrin moved to different places, was moved out of Yerushalayim, of the Lishkat HaGazit. We know the Sanhedrin. In fact, in this week's Parsha Mishpatim, it tells us the very important idea that the Sanhedrin sat in the Beit HaMikdash. There had to be a very close connection between the ritual Avodat Hashem of the Beit HaMikdash and the idea of Mishpat. They're inseparable they should be inseparable in Yahadus, and that's why they sat there. And it was a sad day when the Sanhedrin were forced, because of the situation, the political situation with the Romans, to leave the Beit HaMikdash and to be in various other places in Israel. Galta HaSanhedrin, that was B'yamav in the days of Rabban Gamliel HaZaken. As a result, possibly one can explain some of the takanot. Rabban Gamliel was mitaken, not a few, many takanot that we have brought down in the Gemara, some having to do with burial, that he insisted that when he was buried in plain with no special garments and no special ornaments and no special riches, because so that if he did it, it's like people, who's going to change the trend in making expensive weddings? You need, if a poor guy says, "Oh, I'm going to change the trend, I'm going to make a cheap wedding," they'll say, "Oh, you're a poor guy." But if a wealthy man does it, then it's something. And Rabban Gamliel did it because of various problems, various issues, that he insisted he be buried in plain tachrichin with nothing, no special finery, and not surrounding the whole kavura. And that was important to him as one of the takanos which he made. He made a lot of takanos mipnei tikkun olam, and mipnei getting along with the surrounding neighbors who were the non-Jews. in terms of just like we give tzedakah to the Jews, we should give tzedakah. We should also give tzedakah. I said just like, but it doesn't necessarily mean that we divide up the money equally. But we do visit the sick and go and do chesed and give tzedakah for Gentile neighbors as well. That was very important. And given that this was sort of preparing the people for the long galut that we would be living amongst the goyim, the nations of the world, we can see how significant this was, how we're mityaches, that we're living amongst the umot ha'olam, that we have to get along with them on a way as equals and not look at where over here. And even though Rabbi Gamliel came from the Siyut of Am Yisrael, the Am HaNivchar, that has a special role, but with an understanding that in the Galut we have to have this attitude also, and that may explain some of his takanot in this area. This is Rabbi Gamliel Hazaken. Rabbi Gamliel Hazaken, the Mishnah which we have brought in his name is very interesting. Another thing which he tells us, again, understand the Sanhedrin it's on its way, moved out of its main place, moving from place to place, surviving barely, and soon we're going to be in Galut. So Rabbi Gamliel, in the next Mishnah, it's either Tet Vav or Tet Zayin in Pirkei Avot, it says Rabbi Gamliel Omer, Aseh lecha Rav, sounds familiar, we had it earlier, make for yourself a Rav, v'histalek min hasafek, and stay away from doubt. Now, the Mefarshim explain pretty much across the board that even though we had it earlier, Aseh lecha Rav u'kanei lecha chaver, there it's talking about a Rav for learning. Rabbi Gamliel's concern here, and again, it's in the historical context, we understand, as the Sanhedrin is, the centrality and the central authority of halacha is sort of going down. So the importance of having a Rav for psak, that's what they understand. Aseh lecha Rav, the Rambam, others explain that this is talking to in terms of having somebody for hora'ah, not le'inyan limud. The Rambam says before it was talking about le'inyan limud. Is it good to learn from different people to some extent? One person, a derech of learning and understanding things. But here he's saying it's important that everybody has someone to ask who they can. Nowadays it's so easy. People, joke that you can just go into Google and you type in the psak that you want, and it'll tell you which rabbi to ask. But that's not really the idea here. The idea is obviously to have a rabbi who you respect and trust, and to have the Aseh lecha Rav v'histalek min hasafek, and try to stay away from doubt. And along the same lines as the last statement is the al tarbeh la'aser amadot. This means la'aser when one takes off ma'aser. Truma, we know there's no definite amount given for Truma. A little drop is enough to give Truma. And the Chazal said, if you want to be generous, you give 1/40th, Beinoni 1/50th, 1/60th. It's a small amount. Meiser is 1/10. And he's saying, look, don't do it just by estimation. Al tarbeh la'aser amadot. Amadot means amod. This is not like omed ma'ayin, but this is like to estimate. Don't just do it and say, oh, you know what, I'll give a little more. Because the problem here is if you give too much, it's problematic because Meiser is 1/10. Let's say I give 15%. The extra 5%, nowadays we give it, it's, there's a way to take Trumos and Maestros where it's, we don't really give it to the Levi. But God willing, Bezrat Hashem, Shevat Beit HaMikdash, we'll do it the right way. We should do it exact by measurement, because if you do 15%, that 5% is problematic because you weren't supposed to give that as Meiser. So it goes together with what's being said in general. The statement of Rabbi Gamliel is, it goes together with the first two parts. Make for yourself a Rav, to know what you're doing, to have a psak, stay away from doubt, and don't say, I don't need to ask around, I'll just do this, I'll just, we should have, now listen, you don't want to bother the rabbi with all kinds of questions so much. There are some rabbis with a lot of patience. So, sometimes you don't, some people like they, the rabbi, like leave me alone already. I don't know the rabbis say that, but we should have somebody who we can ask. Rav Shamshin Rafal Hirsch makes a very interesting comment here. He says, I saw it brought down, I didn't see it in the source, but I saw it brought down that it's telling us, don't just be machmir. I'll be machmir, I'll do this. I'll say every chumrah, but very, very many chumrot, em chumrot sheyaviu lidei kulot. You're machmir on one thing, you think you're being machmir, like I said, I'll give more meiser. It's not really good. Other things you'll say, there are certain chumras, you'll say, I'm doing this, I'm taking this on, it's a chumrah. It's end up, you're doing this chumrah, but you're being makil, lenient in another area. And it has its, so just to be machmir, Rav Hirsch says, is also what this Mishnah is saying. Don't just be machmir on everything. It's important to have someone that we can ask in the absence of a Sanhedrin. In the absence, we should have a Rav who we know that we can go to, we can know that we can ask, that we don't just, just do it because of this. We try to stay away from the suffix and don't do things just because I don't want to ask, I don't want to this, but to have someone who we could turn to and we could ask our questions again, not to be neurotic, but to have somebody who we can ask our questions to and get an answer which can be exact from someone who knows, whether it's a chumrah or whether it's a kula, to be and to be somech on them and say, sometimes I know situations where I've had it also. Now I'm not a big anywhere like a posek or anything. People ask questions, I say, yeah, you can do this. And they're saying back, yeah, sure I could do this, it doesn't feel right. I'm saying, I'm sure you could do this. Yeah, but this one time, the people, they want to get an answer, no, you can't do this. If you want an answer, you don't want to do it, don't do it. But sometimes, having a Rav even means if they tell you it's okay. So it's okay. You can do it, and you can do it without guilt, and you can do it without feeling like you're doing something wrong. So that's what Rabban Gamliel tells us. That's the Mishnah of Rabban Gamliel, who tells us, Rabban Gamliel Hazaken, who tells us this Mishnah. The next Mishnah and the final Mishnah in this parak is the son of Rabban Gamliel Hazaken, and it says Shimon Bino, and it's the final Mishnah in the parak. Either it's Tes Zayin or Yud Zayin. Shimon Bino, his son Shimon, says, Kol Yamai, beautiful Mishnah. Kol Yamai gadalti ben hachachamim. By the way, this is Shimon Bino. This is Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel. This was Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel, who was the Nasi at the time right before the Churban, and he is listed as one of the Asara Harugei Malchut. And the famous story which when we say the keynote on Tisha B'Av and on Yom Kippur, and the argument that took place between Rabbi Yishmael Kohen Gadol and Rabbi Shimon Gamliel the Nasi, that the Romans said, who am I going to kill first? And they each pleaded to be killed first so that they don't see the death of the other one. That was Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, who, according to most understanding sources, was the Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, who was one of the 10 Harugei Malchut by the Romans before the Churban. So Shimon Beno, the Shimon Rabbi Gamliel says in this Mishnah, Kol Yamai gadalti ben hachachamim. My whole life I grew up amongst the wise people. V'lo matzati laguf tov mishtika. And I found nothing better for the body, for the soul, for the body, than shtika, than quiet. He's saying, no, I didn't grow up in the racetrack. I didn't grow up in the bars. I grew up ben hachachamim. V'lo matzati laguf tov mishtika. And quiet is good. It's good for the soul. Quiet, a beautiful statement he makes. And the other the other, again, his statements all revolve around this. V'lo ha-midrash hu ha'ikar el ha-ma'aseh. The learning, you can have a great pshat, and you can have great this, and you can give a great shiur or a great insight. But the bottom line is, how do we act? We're a religion of action. The midrash and the understanding and the depth of understanding, it's all good. We're people of who want, understand, need to understand and teach and learn together. But what's the ikar? Is not that. The ikar is hama'aseh, like we had before, like Shammai said before, is that we do. Emor ma'at v'aseh harbeh. V'chol hamarbe dvarim, and if you speak too much, mevi chet. And according to most mefarshim, this is not just talking about marbeh dvarim again, out on the street, in the bar, and this. This is talking about even in learning, not to be so lengthy and not to be, because even that could bring to mistakes and misunderstandings, to talk and it's a long thing, something which is to the point, concise. I'll say, my father loved short and sweet. And he always said, something, that's the statement here of Kol Amar B'Dvarim, short and sweet. And to say it, if you say it's too much talking, and so one level, this understanding is even in the base medrash, too much, it should be concise. But certainly out of the base medrash, as others understand this, Kol Amar B'Dvarim Mevi Chet, and we've said this before, you look at strife, you look at fights between people, you look at feuds in wherever they are, between friends, between family, lo aleinu, that these things take place. If you trace it back, 98% of the time, the source was that somebody, at least 98% of the time, that somebody said something that they shouldn't have said. Somebody said something, they took it this way. Kol hamar bedvarim mevi chet. To be so careful about how we speak. The Rambam waxes poetic here, and he has a long piece. If anyone wants to look at it over the week, it's this last piece in the Rambam's commentary on this Mishnah, which is lengthy. It happens to be that when we studied last year select writings of Maimonides, the Rambam, and Nachmanides, the Ramban, I did some of this with you, where he breaks all speech into different categories. I'm not going to spend the same time on it with you guys this year, but because too much speech, too much talking. But if anyone wants to see the whole piece, it's worthwhile to see. And I'll speak about it, God willing. We'll just finish it up a little bit, what the Rambam says before we begin Perek Sheni, which is didn't know we'd get to this day. Baruch Shechianu. I'm not supposed to say Shechianu these days, but that we got to this day is very good. I'm gonna, believe it or not, I'm gonna end a little on time because I have a 12 o'clock dentist appointment in a little bit, a few minutes from my office here, which I'm gonna try to get. You need it at the